Wailing in the Woods. Written by Nightscribe user freakyfettucine. Chapter 1. $500. It's the only thing I can keep telling myself to continue this stupid drive. 2 weeks ago, I had everything I could have wanted. A warm bed, plenty of free time, a degree. Now, thanks to yet another family blowout, I'm stuck in this dingy car that smells like wet dog and pine needles, driving hours to house sit for my uncle's friend. The Minnesota winter is terrible, especially with a broken heater. As the drive progressed, I only got even colder. My fingers were stiff and numbly wrapped around the steering wheel. I was probably just going to freeze to death in the middle of a forest with nothing to show for myself. But $500, if what my uncle said was true, that would be enough to keep me going. The trees were getting even thicker as I kept driving, snow-heavy evergreens every which way. The road was getting more decrepit the further I went, and the squeaking of my car's suspension was driving me insane. It must have been an eternity by the time the lodge came into sight. It was magnificent. Nestled in a perfectly circular clearing, the house dominated the area. Glowing and vibrant cedar contrasted stone foundations and fireplaces. It was 2 stories high and perfectly well kept. Windows dotted every wall, and it was capped with a forest green pitched roof. In the front, a couple chairs, a fire pit, and an abundance of firewood were gathered. I chose to park next to a white truck with a camper shell sitting in the driveway with all kinds of supplies by it. Getting out of my car was terrible. When I turned the ignition off, a plume of smoke rose from the hood of my car. When I stood up, the suspension squealed and a frigid blast of the cold air zapped all the warmth from my skin. Trying to ignore the thick smog and the black liquid dripping from underneath my car, I looked around. If anything, I should be paying these people to stay here. I walked up to the door and took in my surroundings. The house emanated cozy, warm air, and the lights gave everything a peach glow. Snow mounded on every surface but the floor, and the dense forest surrounding the house was no exception. A faint buzz came from the lamps above me, but the air felt still. The gales of wind I went through getting here were gone now, and the house was frozen in time. Even the trees were empty, no rustling of deer or birds calling. The weather must have scared them off too. It was dead silent. With a deep breath, I knocked on the door. "Who are you?" I flinched and took a half step back. He had jerked the heavy wooden door open before my fist hit a second time. This wasn't even close to who my uncle described. Instead of a cheerful backwoods family man, I was standing in front of a living corpse. A hollowed-out man with wrinkles and a large nose. He had deep, dark cheeks and eyes darting all around. He wore a heavy canvas jacket and thick wool gloves, well ahead of my hoodie and jeans. Underneath his maroon hat, his hair was sticking all over the place. Did my uncle say 500 or 50? Now I don't know. Hello, sir. My name's Micah. I'm not sure if you remember our call. I'm coming to house sit for you. I'm sorry for being late. My car's... Yeah, I remember you now. Come on in. You look freezing, kid. His gravelly voice cut through the wind and he stepped aside, showing me in. If the outside was inviting, the inside was even more enticing. I plopped onto one of the wide and plushy leather couches around the fireplace and absorbed the heat of the flame. A wood and glass table sat in the center with a couple almanacs on top. The fireplace donned a collection of animal skulls. A taxidermied head of a black bear commanded them all. Just above the fireplace hearth, a large framed photo of the man and a ginger woman sat, taken right in front of the lodge. A handful of landscape paintings were scattered throughout the room, each with their own homely lamp. The interior spoke of a refined rustic, a perfect house for a man and his family living this far out. I could hear the stomping of boots on creaking wood floors, and the man sat with a thud. What do I even say to this guy? Bye, man, have fun. Can I have my money, please? For the faintest moment, he allowed himself to rest and relaxed into his chair. As quickly as it had come, it had gone. He let out another wheezing cough and tensed up. $500. 3 nights. You'll get your money on Sunday when I get back. What you need to do is relatively easy. Clean out the fire each night if you use it. Make sure all the doors and windows are locked. Keep the house clean. Easy enough stuff. The thermostat is locked at 70. There's no changing that. Wi-Fi is on the fridge. Food is in the pantry. He kept talking and talking. His hands fidgeted everywhere. His neck, his watch, his belt. His eyes stuck to the window behind me, occasionally glancing down at his watch. His chest rose and fell with heavy, laborious breaths, while his voice scratched and rasped as he spoke. Where was his family? And of course, how could I forget about Sable? Sable! 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 He shouted out, his voice booming and resonating through the log walls. A black, brown, and white border collie came dashing from the upstairs, her nails clicking on the wooden floors of the lodge. With one great leap, she landed onto the man, and the two engaged in a quick but lively grapple. The man lifted her up and placed her onto the ground. After a moment, she realized my presence and looked at me inquisitively. She's a great dog and will be your focus and your company for most of the stay. Her food is in the fridge, 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. She's a hungry dog, so you can be generous on the serving sizes. Do you have any questions? I didn't catch your name. The excitement from the tussle with Sable drained, and his face returned to its somber form. Jackson Miller. Sorry, I should have started with that. Gotcha. That all sounds wonderful to me. Can I get a quick tour? He sped through the tour. Between the amount of times he checked his watch and glanced around, I was barely able to gather the basics from his mumbling. The house was simple enough. The upstairs had the master bedroom, another bedroom I would be staying in, a bathroom, and a small parlor room with a pool table. Downstairs was the living room and fireplace, the kitchen, another bathroom, and a supply closet. It was all normal except for the supply closet. His hand hesitated on the doorknob of the supply closet, and he withheld from opening the door. It has the odd cleaning materials, the entrance to the cellar and boiler room. Nothing you should be concerned with. His entire demeanor shifted halfway through his sentence. His body grew small and the bags under his eyes sank. Weird. With that, he wrapped up the tour and we made our way to the door. He coughed and took a deep, ragged breath. I'll be hunting up north since I'm running low on food. If you need help or have any questions, Sable is your best bet. Sunday morning. Got it? The thought of $1,000 flashed through my mind. Yes, sir. Happy hunting out there. His eyes lingered on me and took on a dreadfulness. Oh, and don't leave her alone. I mean, I'll be back soon, but don't let her be lonely." Then he slammed the door and took off for his truck. Whoa, who the hell was gonna be lonely? Come on, me and Sable were gonna be best friends. As I headed to the kitchen to survey his snacks, I thought about our conversation. He flip-flopped between his woodsman personality and being a coward. Why was he so on edge and keeping the time? I don't think hunting is that stressful. Oh well. It didn't matter as soon as I saw that pantry, though. Every kind of snack, treat, and meat lined the walls. What could this guy need all this food for? Where was he even getting it? It didn't matter, though, because I was about to be living in luxury. Chapter 2. When you've been living out of your car and surviving on goldfish and rotisserie chickens, it's easy to forget about his weird behavior. I haven't eaten this well since I watched my grandma's house and was able to raid all of her chorizo. I mean, seriously, the dude had everything. I started with a classic pizza sandwich. Some meat he had in the fridge, a little pepperoni, some cheese, and bam! Pizza sandwich. It was bomb. I glanced at my phone and saw it was 6:10 p.m. Time to feed Sable. I looked around in the fridge, but it was just full of milk, eggs, and bags of meat. Is that what she ate? I felt her silky fur glide by my leg and her nose went to the bottom drawer. Inside was a big red container filled with some kind of gelatinous wet food. Some premium stuff, I guess. She was spinning around and around, so she must love it. With a sloppy scoop into her metal bowl, it landed with a heavy, moist flump. It smelled intensely like fish oil and beef liver, but Sable slurped the mush down ecstatically. Trying to avoid it killing my appetite, I turned to the pantry and chose a big bag of Doritos. Sweet. Sable, come on girl, let's go watch something on the TV. And we made our way to the living room. It was gonna be a great night. I laid into the couch, this time allowing myself to fully settle in. Sable lay at my feet and I pulled out my iPad, arguably the best purchase I've made for my house sitting. All I need is the Wi-Fi and I can binge watch anything I want. Tonight I was watching Breaking Bad, the show my best friend Aaron incessantly told me to watch. He'd be so proud to hear I finally decided to start it, and for the next 3 days, I would do my best to get through it. The first couple episodes really lived up to the hype. I could feel the vibe of the entire room change while I watched them drive their RV into the desert. I noticed Sable must have left me at some point. Sable! Where could she have slipped away to? I sat up and scanned the room. I don't know how to explain this, but the world felt different. The lamps lost their sharpness and the glow felt muted. It somehow felt even quieter, even with Jesse and Walt arguing. I paused the show and made my way to the hallway. My feet were radiating my warmth into the cool floorboards with each squeak under my weight. I saw Sable at the end of the hallway, sitting with her ears perked and body stiff. She was facing that weird closet. Sable, come here. I awkwardly slapped my hand onto my thigh. The sound was somber and lifeless, practically empty in the air. What the hell was she looking at? It was freaking me out. I snapped my fingers and her eyes stayed locked onto that door. Could she hear me? All night she listened, but now she was fully locked onto the door. I could feel the floor start to vibrate with life, and Sable let out a long and quiet whine. It cut through the air and shot a chill right down my back. Something was off about her. Her tail lowered and her ears went back and limp. I saw her body brace, and a thick, heavy thud came from under the floor. She turned to me, eyes wide, and began to run towards me as the most unholy sound erupted from under the door. A horrifying chorus of human misery and anguish erupted from the cellar door all at once, in such an inhumane manner that the lights seemed to get dimmer. The campfire became dull, and the world was devoid of any semblance of hope. In the split second I could hear it before my ears went unresponsive, I was made aware of the sound of a call of suffering people. The most anguishing, excruciating, and piercing shriek ripped through the door with such sheer force, the entire house trembled. My hands darted to cover my ears, and I bolted away from the hallway, blindly following Sable. I followed her all the way upstairs and slammed the guest door shut, locking us inside. A stabbing, high-pitched frequency emanated from my ears, and the world was drowned out. My vision blurred, and I stumbled onto the bed, my equilibrium completely shot. Slick and hot liquid streamed down my neck, and a look at my hands confirmed my suspicions. Whatever the hell that sound was, also caused my ears to flow blood. I pulled my shirt to my head and clumped the cloth into my ear canal until it stopped. While I waited for the bleeding to stop, I thought about the sound. There was the boiler. Did air leak out, or did it restart? Did it just explode downstairs? That couldn't be it. It sounded like people. Sable knew it was coming, so something must have alerted her. After a few minutes, I removed my shirt from my ears. As I pulled the cloth out, it felt like pulling a bloody and soaked tissue from a nosebleed. It slowly and sickeningly dragged out as a heavy and viscous scarlet sludge slipped out. I was going to throw up or pass out. When I looked around the room, I could feel the dried blood on my neck and neck crack and pull. Sable was at the foot of the bed. I moaned out her name and she leaped up, sniffing me. I looked her in the eyes and ran my fingers through her soft and dense coat. What just happened? Chapter 3. For the rest of the night, Sable pawed at her ears, and I watched the wooden panels of the door for any sign of movement. I kept a hand pressed against the wall, hoping to feel for any vibrations or pulses of life. There was nothing. The exhaustion of the drive and the withdrawal of adrenaline must have completely wiped me. When I woke up, the sun sliced through the windows and cast beams across the room. Reluctantly, I stood up and made my way to the door. The sound of my footsteps were completely flat, like the recording of an echo of an echo. I pressed my hand to the doorknob and pulled it open. The air rushed into the room. The faint smell of copper rode the balmy air. The air was hot with a slick heat to it. Calling Sable to come with me, I made my way to the stairs. My hands trembled as I gripped the rail, and I tiptoed down the stairs. Whatever made that sound wasn't going to take kindly to me. The living room was the first place I checked, and it was completely fine. My iPad must have died at some point and laid tangled in the blankets on the couch. I made my way to the kitchen and looked around. Nothing was broken or moved. Sable looked at me longingly, and I knew it must be time to feed her. I opened the fridge to get her gross paste, and all the food was gone. Almost everything in the fridge was completely missing. The inside walls were full of scrapes and cracks. As I reached for her drawer, I felt a thin, viscous film slick to my fingers. Ooh, oh my God. I pulled the drawer open and pulled out the red container and slammed the door closed. My hand was covered in thin, microscopic strings of moisture, webbed on my fingers and palm. Was it spit? I washed my hands under the sink, but the running tap only made it worse. The spit didn't dissolve. It only smeared into an unbreakable layer on my skin. I pumped a glob of dish soap onto my arms and violently scrubbed until my knuckles were raw. The slime was off, but my hands still felt sticky. I set the bowl of food down on the floor for Sable, and the reality of what happened hit me all at once. Sweat from the heat fell down my face. It was so hot. Without knowing what to do, I pulled out my phone. I called the only friend I had left, the only person crazy enough to drive out here. The phone rang against my ear, the sound shallow and quiet. A high-pitched whine still lingered in the back of my head. I winced with each ring.
Hello?
Aaron's voice finally came through. It was tiny and distorted, thick with sleep and practically unintelligible from the stabbing in my head. "Aaron, come out here. Something is in the house." I didn't realize how loud I was until my own throat rasped and burned.
Jesus, Micah, back away from the mic.
He groaned, his voice buzzing uncomfortably in my damaged eardrums.
It's barely 7 in the morning. Are you okay? Did your dad finally kick you out for good?
"No, I'm at that house-sitting thing, the lodge." I paced the kitchen, wiping the sweat from my forehead. "Aaron, my ears were bleeding. Something was screaming in the basement last night and the fridge was completely destroyed. There's spit everywhere. Please." There was a long, heavy pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the faint rustle of sheets as Aaron sat up.
Dad? Micah, did a bear get inside?
"It's not a bear. Bears don't sound like people being tortured." I dragged my hands down my face, my chest heaving. I could feel tears welling up in my eyes and my voice began to crack. "Aaron, please. I'm like deaf, man. My car is completely shot and I don't have anyone else to call. You're the only one I have left. Please, man, please." Another heavy pause. The distorted sound of him letting out a long, frustrated sigh crackled through the speaker.
Fine. Damn it, it's gonna take me all day to get there, man.
Aaron muttered, the aloofness in his voice barely masking his concern.
Text me the address, lock yourself in a room, and don't do anything stupid.
Relief rushed through my entire body and tears fell down my cheek. I wasn't going to be alone. I scrambled to send him the address and took another look around the kitchen. The cabinets and walls had chunks gouged out of them. Scratches senselessly ran down the hallway. No marks were on the floor, but there were even more thick drops of spit. I followed the saliva all the way to the hallway and took it in. The walls were even more marked up in the hallway. Alternating left to right, near my stomach's height, were half-inch deep wounds in the wood. One of the lamps underneath the paintings laid shattered on the floor. Glass shards were thrown everywhere. The painting was left on the floor, and as I went to pick it up, the frame broke and fell to pieces. I carefully slid the canvas out and looked at it. Red mesas stacked on top of each other, the top adorned with trees and a brilliant blue sky. Marked in a cursive signature were the initials E.M. in the bottom right corner, with a cactus just to the side. I placed the painting back down and made my way to the end of the hallway. Glass crunched under each step, and I cautiously made my way past the bathroom door. A hot wave came from the door carrying the acrid, burning scent of acid and rotting food. Beneath the metallic tang of copper was the sharp, sour stench of sickness. I went to plug my nose, and as my hand nestled the handle of the supply closet door, I could feel the latch wasn't fully closed. The door was only a few millimeters from where it had been last night. I sucked in a breath of the sickly air and gently pulled the door till I heard the click. It was closed. The air rushed out of my lungs and I made my way back down the hallway. I wasn't sure what I had accomplished, but now that scent can stop infecting the house. Sable stayed posted at the end of the hallway. Something stopped her from coming with me. I couldn't tell if it was the smell, the glass, or the memory of that sound stopping her, but I knew Aaron would help us investigate. I knelt to pet her and a whimper came out of her mouth. I checked my phone and understood she probably needed the bathroom by now. With Aaron not being here until the afternoon, getting out of the heat and rot of the house would help. I grabbed a thick winter coat next to the door and called Sable over. Hopefully she didn't need a leash. Who knows where that would be? Stepping outside didn't bring the relief I thought it would. Sable pranced out and did her business by the campfire. The world was completely dead aside from her. The silence of the woods was absolute, replaced only by the slightly improved ringing from my ears. No wind, birds, wildlife, anything even dared to break the absolute silence. The trees stood unwavering against a pale and washed-out sky. The only movement in sight was my breath against the frigid air. I sat down onto the top steps and wrapped my arms around my knees. Sable was done and sat next to me, her warmth providing some comfort, and my eyes settled to the trees. I thought it was just another shadow at first, but the soullessness of it gave it away. It stood stiffer than a taxidermied mount. Its ear didn't twitch, and its chest didn't rise. Its head was locked at a sharp, unnatural angle. The antlers and eyes aimed squarely at me, and just me. The eyes didn't glow with life. They just reflected the pale light. The longer I stared, the more the imperfection of the deer settled in. Its torso stretched just a fraction too long, as if someone had forced an extra set of ribs into it. When Sable caught my gaze and faced the creature, it finally moved. The thing didn't startle or bolt. It just shifted its weight and retreated into the dark, its gait slow, heavy, and completely silent. Weariness flooded my body and my mind began to throb. My vision blurred and my thoughts became drowned by a fog. I only stared at the tree line, slipping in and out of a detached waking sleep. Time pulled by and I watched the shadows stretch longer and longer till the sky became bruised purple and orange. My eyes flashed with light as I was blinded by headlights, and my ears flared up with the sound of gravel crunching. I heard a car door slam and a dark silhouette made its way to me. "Aaron?" I shuffled to my feet, hands ready if it wasn't. I heard the sound of my friend chuckle and his arm came to my shoulder. "Holy crap, dude. You look like crap. What happened?" My brain struggled to process another human being. He stood there, one arm in his pocket and the other on my shoulder. His dark green eyes shined with a smirk and his shaggy blonde hair fell just below his chin. His slender frame was relaxed and he just looked so devastatingly normal. I couldn't help but grin at his too familiar smile and took a deep breath. "So much has happened, man. I'm just happy you're here." His arm fell from my shoulder and shoved itself deep into his pockets. "Let's go inside. It's freezing out here." "Yeah." Relief washed over me and then vanished, replaced by an icy dread. I spun around, nearly tripping over myself as I looked around the porch. The steps were empty. I frantically searched the purple tree line and the campfire. "Sable, she's not here." "Chill, dude. You're freaking me out. What are you talking about?" Aaron's smile fell and his body tensed up. "Sable." The words barely slipped out of my throat. "The dog I was watching. She was with me. My chest tightened and legs wavered. She was sitting right here next to me. Hey, it's all right. I bet she went inside. We can go check." His arms came out of his pocket and he opened the slightly ajar, heavy wooden door to the lodge. Sickly, peach-colored light spilled out, carrying the all-too-familiar heat and scent of rot. Aaron's face replicated mine, as his cheeks and nose curled up in disgust. "What died in here?" He coughed and brought his collar over his mouth. He took a hesitant step over the threshold into the lodge and looked around. I watched as the smile in his eyes turned to disgust, then confusion, and finally revulsion. The pantry door lay splintered into four, strewn about the room. Crushed tin cans and plastic coverings scattered throughout the living room and kitchen, coated with the slime. The thick and unbreakable strings of slime hung from the crushed cabinets, scratched walls, and even the taxidermy mounts. "Micah," Aaron's voice muttered through the collar of his jacket. "What the hell did this?" His voice trembling now. My hands fumbled to my pocket and I searched for Mr. Jackson's phone number. With a press, I began the call and waited for him to pick up. He was going to kill me for letting this happen. How could I not notice some bear destroying his house? It rang 5 times and then clicked silent. A chilling fear ran down my spine. I couldn't look at the fresh, senseless destruction of the kitchen. My eyes stayed glued to the end of the hallway. Past the shattered painting, the caved-in bathroom door, the cellar was wide open. It wasn't just cracked anymore. It was wide open. A gaping maw of darkness lurked at the entry, radiating that suffocating, sweltering heat into the rest of the house. I had clicked that latch shut. I know I did. "She's down there," I whispered, the realization making my knees weak. Aaron must have felt the same allure of the darkness, because his collar dropped from his face and he marched to the fireplace. Without a word, he picked up a fire poker and faced the hallway. His knuckles turned white as he gripped it. "Stay behind me," he whispered. His dark green eyes were wide open and he took slow, anticipatory steps toward the door. Chapter 4. It hit us like a wall. The air from the cellar wasn't hot. It was thick and wet like the air of a dying lung. It smelled like a slaughterhouse left to rot in the sun, a smothering wave of rotting meat, spoiled fat, and the stomach-churning burn of marrow. Beneath the heavy, decaying odor was something sharper, like battery acid or sour milk. My eyes watered and my hands pressed against the wall. Aaron took the first step down. A slight creak slipped from the wooden stairs. I followed behind him, my hands firmly wrapped around a chunk of wood from the pantry door. Each step was announced by the wood groans underneath our weight, until the click of stone announced we were at the bottom. My eyes struggled to adjust to the pitch blackness, and my hand went for my phone. I shined my flashlight at the brightest setting towards the corner of the room. Sable sat, rigid as ever, facing the wall. "Sable? Sable, come here, girl." My voice broke with each word. She was completely still. Aaron looked back towards me, his finger pointing across with a deep look of uncertainty running in his eyes. I shifted my phone towards his gaze, and the beam of light caught a nightmare. At least 2 deep and 4 high were the carcasses of deer piled on top of each other. Their midsections were completely ravaged, with only stained yellow rib cages left. The floor was dyed crimson, and sucked dry bones were scattered throughout. More translucent webs of the spit dripped from the walls and ceiling, pooling onto the meat like wax. My stomach churned and shifted in ways I've never felt before. It was so disgusting. Just to the left of the slaughter, a dirty and stained mattress with torn blankets rested on the floor. A small vanity table sat in the very corner, adorned with various pill bottles and cups. Aaron gulped and took a slow, agonizing step toward the vanity, his fire poker raised. He used the tip of the iron to nudge a small picture in a silver frame lying flat on the table. It flipped over, revealing a dusty photograph of a young Jackson Miller, with his arm around a smiling woman. She had long, ginger hair and a paintbrush in one hand. Etched into the bottom of the silver frame were the words, "Jackson and Evelyn Miller." Evelyn Miller. E.M. She must be the woman who did all the paintings in the house. I shifted the wood in my hands and looked at Aaron. "Do you think he killed her?" He didn't answer. The color drained from his face, and his green eyes locked on the space directly above my head. His jaw went slack, the fire poker trembling in his grip. A wet, heavy shifting sound echoed above us, and a thick glob of saliva landed right between us. The shadows on the cellar beams began to shift and move. It wasn't saliva. It was breathing. A massive shadow dropped from the ceiling at the stairs with a thundering boom. The weight shook through the floor and into the soles of my feet. As my phone moved to reveal the creature, I could hear the stretching of flesh, the popping of joints, and the horrific mimicking of a human breathing from the darkness. The pale beam of light hit, and my mind violently rejected what it was seeing. It wasn't just a monster. It was an amalgamation of corpulent, heavy torsos fused together into a massive mound of tissue. A woman's face with no eyes and a mouth stretched out in agony beneath a curtain of faded orange hair stood frozen in permanent agony. Beneath her chin, the flesh split. A massive and null maw wide enough to fit even me in it was open. Wisps of shadows curled from the huge mouth, leaking into the world with a burning heat. They searched and coiled around the face. Heavy globs of spit leaked out, a bottomless hunger that explained the mountain of deer. The mass disturbed me to my very core as it unnaturally moved to completely block the stairs. One arm was a thick and colloidal bundle of flesh resembling a club, the very thing that had destroyed the doors and walls. The other arm was composed of 2 massive bones, a thin and translucent veil of skin connecting the 2. As the void maw exhaled, the air carried a metallic tang so strong I could taste it on the back of my tongue. It was the intense and unmistakable scent of old blood cooking in the dark, like a handful of old copper pennies soaked in stomach acid. As the creature breathed, the mound on its back moved. It was a cluster of human and animal skulls fused together, some faces solidified into the body. The lips of the human faces parted and together let out a unified and hollow wail that echoed off the basement walls. Evelyn was gone. This thing had consumed her, and now it was going to consume us. It put forward a massive pillared leg with a rounded foot and eroded skin forward and lurched towards me. The thud of its foot on concrete snapped me back to reality, and I dashed to the side just as its mammoth club swung to the ground, sending chips of concrete through the air. The creature's mouths called again, a discordant chorus that vibrated my eardrums. Micah! Aaron's voice was a jagged scream that pierced through the sound. I looked back as his arm tossed his car keys towards me. The wooden board slipped from my hand as I lunged for the keys. My fingers wrapped around them as I watched Aaron raise the iron poker high. Get the dog! He didn't wait for me to move, but he dived between me and the creature. I scrambled to the corner. My shoes slipped on the slick slime until I reached Sable. She didn't look at me. She didn't even move. She was a motionless statue of fur and bone. A waterlogged slam erupted behind me, followed by an ensemble of whines. I scooped up Sable's heavy and cold body and turned towards the stairs. Aaron had crushed his poker into the side of the beast. It was stuck in the collapsed skull it landed in. He looked at me, his dark eyes wide and black with fervor and terror. Go! I'll be right behind you! The poker ripped out of the creature, and small fragments of bone sprayed through the air. I ducked behind the creature and bolted up the stairs. Sable's body stayed rigid in my arms as I clambered up the stairs, putting as much force as I could into propelling myself up. Behind me, a wet, sickening sound exploded, the club arm connecting with something solid. Don't look back! Just go! I'll be there! Aaron's voice was wet and strained, gurgling in between gasps. My lungs burned from the acidic air, and I burst out of the door. I'll be back! I called down the stairs. Thick tears ran down my face. I sprinted down the hallway and into the kitchen. The keys Aaron had thrown to me were stinging my palm from where I had been gripping them. I didn't stop. I didn't look for my best friend. I knew he gave me an opening, a second chance. With Sable in my arms and the keys cutting into my palm, I burst through the front door and into the freezing night. Chapter 5. The cold hit me and cleansed the taste and smell of rot from my tongue. I ran past my car. From the smoking engine to the dead heater, taking it was practically a death sentence. Instead, I raced towards Aaron's big red truck, my shoes grinding on the icy gravel driveway. An immense crash came from the house, and I set Sable on the floor. I fumbled with the key to the truck. My fingers were numb from the cold and slick from whatever coated the cellar. I threw the passenger door open and shoved Sable inside. She hit the seat with a heavy, solid thud, and a soft growl came from her mouth. I didn't have time to wonder why, or to check if she was okay. I scrambled into the driver's seat and forced the key into the ignition. Crank, crank, and then the engine came to life. At the same time the engine roared, another crash came from the house, this time even closer. I slammed the gear into reverse. The tires squealed against the snow and ice as I desperately pulled away from the lodge. I wrenched the wheel as hard as I could and felt the truck begin to swing around. The headlights swept over the lodge, and for a split second, they caught the heavy oak door. It was ripped right off its hinges to the side, and a huge, looming silhouette spilled into the night. I floored it. I didn't look back at the house, or for Aaron, or at the creature coming towards me. In the rearview mirror, I saw the silhouette brace and let out a final, deafening roar. It was a gargantuan, wet howl fueled by collective pain of every soul it had consumed. It tore through the night in a singular, harmonized note of unadulterated hate. Hate of everything it was, and everything it craved. I narrowly swerved away from a deer in my path. A slew of wildlife was running on the road and at the tree line. Deer, wolves, and foxes all frantically darted around me in a chaotic dance. The car lurched with each near hit of the animals, but I kept pressing forward. The frenzied silhouettes began to thin out and vanish into the dark, purple mist behind me. I eased off the gas. The road ahead was a long and empty ribbon through the trees. My breathing was the loudest thing in the truck. Ragged inhales and exhales as my mind swirled to understand what happened. "We're okay, Sable?" I choked out, reaching an arm back to pat around the passenger seat. My body had slowed down enough for the adrenaline to wear off and the grief to catch up. "We'll be at the main road in no time. I'm gonna get us help. I'm gonna find a way to help Aaron." My hand landed on her back. She was still cold, colder than the air outside. I frowned and my fingers brushed through her fur. It felt matted and dense. "Sable?" I glanced into the rearview mirror, this time at the back seats. The reflection in the mirror was another dark, creeping silhouette. The truck hit a divot in the road and bounced up, but her body just absorbed the impact, locked in that unnatural, upright position. "Sable?" I whispered again. The word caught in my throat, and my stomach began to twist. I waited for the thump of her tail, or the pressing of her wet nose into my arm, but she stayed in that form. I waited to hear her panting. Nothing. I turned on the cabin light, and a pale yellow glow lit up the seats. It looked like a dog. Hell, it almost convinced me. It had faded black and brown hair, the alert ears, the long, wet snout. The paws tucked squarely beneath it, and the eyes faced the road. But the longer the light revealed it, the more the imperfections showed. Its neck was just a little too long. The chest wasn't rising or falling, and the tail was firmly planted. But what gave it away was the eyes. They were completely flat, matte black, and staring completely through me. My foot slowly eased off the gas pedal, and my eyes stayed locked onto the rearview mirror. And then, deliberately and consciously, the thing tilted its neck. The head kept leaning and leaning to the side until it nearly touched its shoulder. A sound of stretching leather and damp popping came from its neck, and its jaw slowly opened. I turned my head towards the road, and behind me I could hear its mouth let out a long and exasperated sigh that sounded a little too much like a human sigh. My knuckles whitened as I gripped the steering wheel, staring straight ahead at the empty road. I wasn't alone in the truck. I dragged the cellar into it with me.